Hello guys, I'm Nigist. I came back with more essential issue of research, that is sampling. Don't forget to subscribe, like and click the bell sign of my channel to have a quick access for videos which is being uploaded with Nigist Media. My today's presentation will focus on sampling method. Researchers conduct their investigation using a census to participate the whole population or taking the subset of them to make a statistical inference and conclusion about the whole population in general. Sampling conceptually is the subset of the population to make statistical inference from them and estimate the characteristics of the whole population. It is a time-convenient and cost-effective method that forms the base for the research design. Researchers design their research design or pedagogy based on the sample size and sampling methods that they are applying during their investigation. Types of sampling is my today's next concern. Sampling may be either a probability or non-probability type of sampling based on the criteria and scientific feature of the sample that researchers are selecting. They can decide the sampling technique based on their inputs and their designs. Probability sampling is my first concern here in this video. It is a sampling technique where researcher sets a selection of few criteria and chooses the member of the population randomly. So probability sampling gives the whole population equal opportunity of being selected to participate or being part of the sample through using different parameters. Types of probability sampling. Probability sampling may be a simple random sampling, a cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and a stratified sampling. Let me proceed the detail of each type of probability sampling step by step. Simple random sampling is the first sampling method under probability sampling, which is a reliable method of obtaining information where every single member of the population is chosen randomly by chance for the population to be a participant or a representative sample within the investigation process. Simple random sampling is simply a lottery method of sampling that gives an equal chance for all population of being chosen as a population within the sample. And simple random sampling is the most essential and easiest way to use a lottery method to select a representative sample from the population that can enable the researcher to make generalization about the whole population by evaluating the characteristics of the whole population. Cluster sampling is the second type of probability sampling. This type of sampling is a sampling method where researchers divide the entire population into sections or clusters based on demographic parameters like age, sex, location that can represent the population in general. So age, sex and location of the population can have a background to select or to represent the sample or to categorize the sample based on their age, sex and location of the whole population. Cluster sampling enables the researcher to select a representative sample from each stratum using a lottery method after classifying with a certain stratum or a cluster of the whole population. Systematic sampling is the next probability sampling. This is the most scientific type and accurate type of sampling method under probability sampling here. So systematic sampling is a method where researchers choose elements from a target population by selecting a random starting point and select sample members after fixing the sample interval of the investigation. Sampling here under this technique is a step-by-step sampling technique. So systematic sampling technique passes through certain processes to determine or fix the representative sample from the whole population. So the first step here is developing and defining structural audiences to start working with the sample aspects. And the next step is figuring out the ideal size of the sample to decide how many people from the entire population should be chosen to be part of a sample. The third step here is assigning the number for every members of the sample. To identify the members of the sample, researchers usually assign a number or differentiating unique symbol for each members of the sample. The fourth step is defining the interval for the sample using a standard distance between each elements of the sample. The standard distance can be defined or determined by using a formula that is I equals with capital N over a small n, where I represents the standard interval of the sample, and capital N represents for the study population in general, and small n stands for the sample size of the population. And the next step here is selecting the members who fits the criteria, which is in this case the 1 from 10 individuals will be taking 1 from 10 individuals will be the most known standard to select the representative sample with this system. The last step is randomly choosing the starting members R, that is sample, and adding the interval to the random number to keep adding members in the sample generally. Having this, researchers can select representative sample from the population through the application of systematic sampling method. The last step here is stratified sampling method. This type of probability sampling is a method which researchers divide the population into a smaller group that do not overlap but represents the entire population. This type of sampling is somewhat similar with cluster type of probability sampling, that this system allows the researcher to classify the population in certain strata and select the representative sample from each strata. So this group can be organized and then draw the sample from each groups separately to conclude on the characteristics of the population after selecting each members from each strata as a representative sample. Probability sampling is beneficiary that it reduces the sample bias. It allows to involve the representative sample with diverse population. That diverse population can participate within the representative sample, and a different population from different background can have different characteristics that this sample can take from different individuals and represent the whole population within the entire research study. The next benefit here is probability sampling allows to create the accuracy of the sample, and the accuracy of the research will be ensured since accuracy of the sample is taken by this type of probability sampling. Non-probability sampling is the next concern here in this video. Non-probability sampling is the other type of sampling technique, which is a method that involves the collection of feedback or data based on the researcher sample and sampling capability, and which is not applied with the selection process like that of the probability sampling. Here there is no step to be followed to select the sample of the respondents. Rather, capability of the researchers to select the sample will be the precondition to take the representative sample from the population in general. And the output of the survey, which is conducted by using this sample, may lead into a skewed result, which is the accuracy and representativeness of the sample may not be assured, or it will be under question mark. Like that of probability sampling, non-probability sampling can have different types, that is convenience, judgmental, snowball, and quota type of sampling. The detail for each type of sampling can be convenience sampling, which is the first type of sampling. Convenience sampling is the first non-probability type of sampling method, which is depending on the ease of access to subject, such as surveying customers at a mall, which is purely done based on the proximity and without considering the representativeness of the sample. So access to the audience is the precondition to select the representative sample, which is every member which is available during the study investigation or the data collection period will be a representative sample, which is far from the accuracy or representativeness of the sample to the population. Judgmental sampling is the second type of sample under non-probability sampling. It is a method where samples are formed by the direction of the researcher and based on the purpose of the study, along with understanding of the target audiences. So judgmental sampling is depending on the understanding of the researchers regarding the audiences. Snowball sampling is the next type of non-probability sampling. It is a sampling method that is applied by the researcher when the subjects are difficult to trace, and it is applied during the situation where topics are highly sensitive and not openly discussed. The issues like a political issue and a political environment may invite to select or to apply this type of sampling under the non-probability sampling technique. The last sampling technique here is quota sampling. It is a sampling technique under an non-probability sampling method, which is based on the pre-test standard according to the specific attributes that is created by a sample, and it will have the same quality found in the total population. So certain quota or number of population will be taken randomly by the researcher according to the attributes and estimation of the researcher that the sample can have a benefit to the study population in general. Finally, benefits of non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling may have certain benefits like that of probability type of sampling. It is beneficiary for the researchers that it creates a hypothesis that certain estimate allows the researcher to test its hypothesis during the investigation process. It is an exploratory research type that it allows to more describe and explain the research variables during the investigation process. The last benefit for non-probability sampling is that it minimizes budget and time constraints. It is easy to determine the sample size of the research, and it can be easily fixed by using a limited period of time and applying with low cost or minimum cost of the research. Relative to that of probability sampling, non-probability sampling is advantageous with costs and time that researchers can finalize their investigation with a limited period of time, and they can have a certain or limited time period to investigate the research in general. Finally, this is the end of my presentation here regarding the sampling technique. Thank you very much for listening me once again.